Hello and welcome to Hindsight with me, Segun Ojomu. This week on Hindsight, we take a look back at what happened at the UN last week. Then we take a look at what's up ahead this week. Now, I will also be joined by a very special guest live in the studio. And trust me, you do not want to miss what that person has to say. Very quickly now, let's remind ourselves of some important moments of the past week.
This week, the UN marked the 16th anniversary of Security Council Resolution 1325, a declaration on women, peace and security. Addressing the Security Council on Tuesday, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon re-emphasized the vital role women play in preventing conflict and maintaining peace. Mr. Ban also called for actions to achieve this goal, saying that the urgent drive must never stop. With 191 member states voting in favor, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on Wednesday calling on the United States to end a long drawn-out embargo against Cuba. The United States abstained for the first time in the history of this annual vote.
Rather than try to close off Cuba from the rest of the world, we want the world of opportunities and ideas open to the people of Cuba. After 50-plus years of pursuing the path of isolation, we have chosen to take the path of engagement.
For migrants and refugees crossing the Mediterranean, the death toll in 2016 could be the heaviest ever. According to the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, over 3,700 lives have been lost so far in 2016 as people made their journey to Europe. Apart from natural causes, UNHCR also warned about the threats of human smuggling, whose use of low-quality vessels and industrial-scale operation have made rescue efforts even more challenging.
And now let's find out what's on the table this week. Now, yesterday was World Cities Day, as you saw in that video. The United Nations has designated the 31st of October as World Cities Day. The day is expected to greatly promote the international community's interest in global urbanization, push forward cooperation among countries in meeting opportunities and addressing challenges of urbanization and contributing to sustainable urban development around the world. Take a listen to this message by United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
To transform our world, we must transform its cities. There, you find crime, pollution, and poverty. But cities are also hubs of energy, innovation, and economic dynamism. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the New Urban Agenda show how investing in cities advances progress across societies. On World Cities Day, let us renew our resolve to confront urban problems and forge lasting solutions. Together, we can show how success in cities inspires change around the world.
Now, last week at the United Nations, the United Nations on Wednesday adopted a resolution calling for an end to an embargo on Cuba, which has lasted for over 50 years. Just hours after that vote was taken in the UN, and with the historic abstention of the United States, the ambassador of Cuba to Nigeria joined us in the studio. Here is his reaction to that historic vote.
Abstain in the vote in the United States in the United Nations General Assembly. So 191 votes for and 2 abstentions only means a lot. First, I think it is a positive step by the Obama administration. So if you read carefully the announcement made by the American representative to the United Nations, she said after announcing why United States was abstaining, this time for the first time in 25 years, she said that for decades, United States had tried to isolate Cuba. But the result was that the one isolated was the United States, as demonstrated by the 24th past votes in the General Assembly. So it is an acknowledgement that that policy had been failed. It's a policy which cannot be sustained, and in my opinion should also be a warning, not a warning, an alert to the American Congress that that policy, which lies on their hands, should be lifted as soon as possible, because it is not harming only Cuba, it is harming the United States as well, as proven with the time.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then Hindsight returns very shortly. Stay with us.
Watching Silverbird Television.
The point is this: is the executive branch. The president has
me, Segun Ojomo. On this program, we'll be bringing you news, views, and exclusive interviews.
Not political will to, to bring back people, our medical experts that are on diaspora.
Raise the efforts so far.
The synergy that has been developed.
Arrived Abuja from Washington, D.C., where he joined President Barack Obama.
Because of the economic recession was over. Now Senator Saki in an interactive...
To capture the moment for in-house in session. From the national...
Okay, I have with me the United Kingdom's High Commissioner to Nigeria, Paul Arkwright. He's joined me in the studio right now. High Commissioner, thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thanks, I'm delighted to be here, Segun. Great to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Now, there's so many things we're going to go through in a very short space of time. Yep. But of course, a lot of viewers out there want to know, the latest about the Brexit.
Sure.
Some would say Britain has become unattractive to business, or Britain is a smaller country now. How would you address that?
Well, the first thing to say is the June 23rd decision was an important decision. It meant that the British people decided that we would come out of Europe, and that's not going to change. But we are still in Europe and will be there for another couple of years during the negotiating period. You're right, there were a lot of people who said the Brexit decision would have a direct impact, a negative impact on the British economy. If you actually look at the figures since the vote, our economy is growing. There's a lot of business confidence. Nissan, the big Japanese car firm, has just announced they're going to build 2 new cars there in Sunderland. The GDP is growing. We're pretty confident that things are not going to be as bad as people claim that they would be, because fundamentally the British economy is strong. Fundamentally, the UK will retain its place on the international stage. Don't forget, we're still a member of the G7, the G20, NATO, and of course, crucially, the Commonwealth, which here in Nigeria I know is very dear to many people's hearts. We are the only country, the only major country that spends 2% of its GDP on defence, in line with the NATO requirement, and 0.7% of our GNI on overseas development assistance. So, I think we've got a lot going for us, and those who write off the United Kingdom as a result of the Brexit vote, I think, will be very surprised.
Okay, talk to me more about the attractiveness of the British economy. I mean, somebody has some billions to invest now. How would you convince that gentleman or that gentlewoman to come to Britain to invest?
Well, first of all, we need to ensure that those billions are legitimate billions.
Of course.
But yes, of course. Look, Nigerians don't need any introduction to the UK. For many people, the UK is Nigerians' second home. They've been educated there. Their kids are going to school there. They have businesses there. They do trade there. So this is not a new thing. The fundamentals of the British economy, as I said, are very strong. The banking structure, the financial instruments, the insurance industry, all of that infrastructure, transport, ease of doing business. We're sixth in the list of ease of doing business in the entire world. Those are all massive advantages. If you throw in the university sector, if you throw in the benefits of British education, then I think you can see that Britain remains a very, very attractive destination. I don't see Nigerian companies suddenly leaving London and going to Paris or Frankfurt. I don't know. Do you, Sugar? It just doesn't sort of feel right to me. But we have to keep working on that. We have to keep working on Britain as an investment opportunity, and that's very much part of my job, to attract Nigerian investment into the UK.
Okay, just the other last week, the EU and Canada signed a historic trade deal, 7 years in the making. Now, some will say, okay, here is the Britain leaving the EU, and then Canada, a country in North America, coming in. I mean, don't you see some? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, Canada's not joining the EU, okay? So when you say coming in, there is a trade agreement.
Yes.
As I said before, we're still a member of the European Union, so we benefit from all of those arrangements until such time as we leave the European Union. But what we're doing is looking at the opportunities for bilateral trade agreements. So with the Canadians, we're starting to talk about that. We're not going to sign anything until we formally left the European Union, because obviously we're still bound by the European Union rules for now. But we are looking at opportunities for bilateral trade agreements, and I like to think that Nigeria will be in that queue, because I think there's a lot that we can do to strengthen the trade relationship, and we can do that through a bilateral agreement, not necessarily through the European Union. The EU has tried so far without success to have a trade agreement with ECOWAS countries. As you probably know, Nigeria is holding out against that. So here is an opportunity for the UK, but also critically for Nigeria. And I think within that family of the Commonwealth, there's a lot more that we can do together. Okay,
we're going to go back to that in a moment, but could you tell listeners, viewers out there, what Article 50 is all about, and what it's going to imply, and the effects on the whole arrangement, the EU arrangement as it is?
Okay, you've asked for a short answer, right?
No, take your time.
Article 50 is the mechanism within the European treaties whereby any country can choose to exit the European Union. It can only be triggered by the country that wishes to leave, so the decision is for the British government to take. Our Prime Minister, Theresa May, has announced that she will trigger that mechanism by the end of March next year. And then there is a 2-year period during which we negotiate an exit from the European Union. A lot of that is around trade. You've already mentioned it. Quite complicated trade arrangements, but it actually affects a whole range of British life, British business, agriculture, trade, tourism, and so on. And that is a complicated set of negotiations which we're going to carry out within that 2-year framework. So Article 50 is a shorthand for the mechanism for that negotiating process. Okay,
before we leave that subject, in the aftermath of the polls, and the uncertainty that followed, the New York Times wrote, and I quote, A country renowned for its political and legal stability is descending into chaos. Now, looking back at all of this, would you say the New York Times was rather alarmist?
Yes, I would. I don't know how long it took this government and many other governments to choose their cabinets, but Theresa May came in, and within 24 hours she had a new cabinet. Within one day, she had a whole set of new ministers. To my mind, that says that Britain is a stable country. It's a stable democracy. We can overcome the shock, and it was a shock for many people. We can overcome the shock with a lot of confidence because we have strong institutions. And strong institutions is the foundation of a true democratic society. And in Nigeria, that's one of the things that we're trying to do, to help build those institutions. Certainly, I guess we'll come onto it in the fight against corruption.
Yes.
That's a very, very important part of it.
Now, let's move away from the economy. Let's talk about security now.
Yeah.
Now, as a standalone nation, can Britain muster the might to deal with terrorism, for example? And of course, there's so many of your allies who have issues with terrorism. So how will Britain cope?
Well, we work with other allies. As I mentioned, we're going to stay in NATO.
Okay.
NATO is a very important group of countries which are fighting terrorism. We're obviously a permanent member of the UN Security Council. That has ultimate responsibility for security in the world and is also responsible for the fight against terrorism. Terrorism is a global phenomenon, and you can't fight that on your own. We recognize that. So we're going to continue to work within those alliances, within those groups, those bodies that we're already a member of, and we're going to stay a member of, in order to fight terrorism. And we're going to do that with the Nigerian government as well. We're actually offering a lot of support to President Buhari in the fight against the Boko Haram terrorists. And that's part of the global fight against this terrible scourge of terrorism, which is affecting so many innocent people.
Now, in the last 1 year, and I don't know if we might have the figure now, take us through just how much in numbers now Britain has helped Nigeria fight against Boko Haram and of course clear out the remnants of Boko Haram in the northeast.
Yeah, well, it's mostly through training. So what we have done is train around 10,000 Nigerian soldiers, Nigerian troops, in different ways, through different training courses and so on. Troops who are going up to the northeast to fight Boko Haram terrorists. So that's a very significant number. We've got around 300, or have had 300 British trainers coming on a regular basis to train troops in basic warfare, in counterinsurgency work. We're providing intelligence material, we're providing intelligence cooperation, not just with the Nigerian military and intelligence apparatus, but with our French and American colleagues. We provided £5 million to the Multinational Joint Task Force, which is, as you know, is the group of neighbouring countries with a headquarters in N'Djamena in Chad. We have people up there. We have a small group of troops in Maiduguri, again working alongside the Nigerian military. And we're looking at other ways in which we can provide support. So we're looking at how we can reinforce that support, how we can work with the Nigerian military in meeting their objectives. I'm glad to say that the Nigerian military and the government has had tremendous success in pushing back Boko Haram, but it's a fight which continues, and a fight which is absolutely critical to the security of this country. And without security, you're not going to bring in the prosperity, you're not going to have the confidence to encourage foreign companies, British investors to come in and create employment opportunities. So it's really about supporting the Nigerian military with them in the lead. We don't have guys in the Sambisa forest fighting Boko Haram, but we do have people behind the scenes helping enormously.
Okay, we run out of time as it is right now, but let me ask you about UNGA, the 71st UNGA. Your country pledged $90 million, if I believe, to help victims of Boko Haram in the Lake Chad Basin area. Now, another $5 million to fight modern-day slavery. Can I ask you why the focus on Nigeria particularly?
Well, the Lake Chad Basin, that was a humanitarian contribution, which is in addition to the £33 million that we've already given this year. So, and for Nigeria alone, it's £50 million. For the Lake Chad Basin region, it's $80 million. And that's to help tackle the terrible humanitarian crisis, the IDP camps and the food insecurity, the disease which we're seeing in the northeast, in Borno State in particular. So that's a commitment from the British government working through our Department for International Development to continue to, and indeed increase, our support for that humanitarian effort. And on the slavery question?
Okay, quickly.
Yep. £5 million to tackle the scourge of modern slavery, part of a £33 million overall modern slavery fund, working very closely with the government here to fight the root causes of modern slavery. Nigerians being trafficked overseas into jobs that don't exist, into prostitution in some cases. This is a terrible problem. Sadly, Nigerians are among the highest number of victims of that dreadful crime, an organised crime, and we're looking at what we can do to help the government and help various states with our £5 million to tackle that scourge of modern slavery. So we're looking for ideas, for projects, ways in which we can reinforce the work of NAPTIP and other Nigerian organisations.
And lastly, talking about the IDPs, the humanitarian situation, just to, yes, the other day, the Human Rights Watch released a report about sexual assaults on women and girls in the IDP camp. I mean, what is your reaction to that?
Well, as a human being, as a father, I'm horrified by those reports. It's very important that the government and the authorities investigate those reports. I was very heartened to see, encouraged that the President reacted very strongly, very immediately, and said, we're going to investigate these reports, we're going to find out what is happening, and we're going to stop it. And I think that's absolutely critical. And again, we're providing support in helping them do that.
Okay. Mr. Paul, Ambassador, High Commissioner Paul Arkwright, thank you very, very much for coming. We look forward to having you as a guest again, not too long from now.
I definitely will do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, to you, our viewers out there, thank you so much for being on the show today. Let's keep the conversation going, shall we? Connect with us on Twitter at HindsightSTV and email us on hindsightstv@gmail.com. We're going to see you next week. From me, Shegun Ojumu, and the rest of the team, goodbye for now. Thanks.